Close your eyes. You are a soldier now. Not a famous one. Not a hero, not even a name anyone will remember. Just a uniform with a person inside it. Now open them. You are standing in a trench. The mud is above your ankles. Something is floating in the water near your boots, and you have decided not to look at it too closely. Welcome to war. History had a lot of them, but some wars were different. Some wars were not just dangerous, they were designed, almost by accident, to destroy the people fighting them. Not through battle, through cold, through disease, through the simple math of being somewhere no human body was built to survive. And the strangest part, sometimes the enemy wasn't even the main problem. Today, we look at the wars where just showing up was already the worst decision of your life. World War I, the Western Front, 1916, imagine a hole in the ground. Now, stretch that hole for 700 kilometers across France and Belgium. Fill it with mud, water, dead rats, and about 3 million men who have been standing there for months with nowhere to go. That is the trench, and you live there now. You sleep there, you eat there, you deal with your personal business there. You do everything there, because leaving means crossing the field in front of you. And crossing that field is not recommended. It's called no man's land. No trees, no cover. Just open mud and barbed wire sitting between you and the other side. The strategy, when it came, was simple. Artillery fires for hours, destroys everything. Enemy hides underground. Artillery stops. Someone blows a whistle. You climb out and walk forward. Except, and here is the part nobody thought through carefully enough, the enemy also hears the artillery stop. So by the time you climb out, they are already back at their machine gun. On the first day of the Battle of the Somme, the British Army lost 57,000 men. For dinner, the next day, they tried again. But the trench had a bonus problem. Nobody advertised when you signed up.
The soldier stands in the trench,
standing in cold
surrounded
water
by
for
mud
weeks,
and the constant
does
threat of the
something
enemy.
to skin.
Every moment
Doctors
is a
called
test
it
of endurance.
trench foot. What it looked like is not something we need to describe here, but the short version is your boots eventually became part of the problem. And the lice, every soldier had them. There was no solution. You just had a permanent roommate situation you never agreed to. Verdun, France, 1916, now same war. Different location, worse in every measurable way. Verdun was not a battle with a beginning and an end, it was a machine that ran for 10 months. Both sides kept feeding men into it because stopping would mean admitting the last batch was wasted, so they kept sending more. The artillery never stopped, day and night, for months. The ground shook constantly. Some soldiers described losing track of time entirely, not because they were busy, but because every hour sounded exactly like the last one. Some men survived the bullets and the gas and the wire and still came back unable to speak. Doctors had a name for it, shell shock. The treatment was mostly go back in. At Verdun, more than 300,000 men died. The front line moved about 8 kilometers total. That's less than a 2-mile walk. Stalingrad, Eastern Front, 1942, everything has changed. You are no longer in France. You are in the Soviet Union. It is winter and cold. Here is a different category of cold. Your rifle jams, not sometimes, regularly. Metal contracts in extreme cold and mechanisms stop working, so you have a weapon that fires occasionally, in a city where every building is its own small war. Stalingrad, by late 1942, was not really a city anymore. It was a collection of ruins with soldiers inside them, and the fighting was room by room, floor by floor. Sometimes, the same staircase changed hands 3 times in one day. Supply lines had been cut, which meant food became creative. First rations, then reduced ration, then horses, then whatever was left. Some soldiers boiled leather boot soles into a kind of soup. Others ate rats. Not as a last resort, as a regular Tuesday, the temperature hit minus 30, sometimes lower. And the strange part is that both sides were suffering equally. German soldiers had marched in expecting a short campaign, and were now wearing the same summer uniforms in a Russian winter, burning furniture to survive. Nobody was winning. They were just both losing at the same pace. Siege of Leningrad, Soviet Union, 1941 to 1944. This one is less of a war story and more of a math problem. A city of 3 million people completely surrounded for 872 days. Nothing in, nothing out. The bread ration for a soldier actively defending the city eventually dropped to 250 grams per day. That is roughly 2 slices of bread for a full day of manual labor in freezing temperatures. Then the bread started being mixed with sawdust to add volume, because the numbers didn't add up otherwise. The city held, but held is doing a lot of work in that sentence. By the end of the siege, Leningrad had lost more civilians than the United States and Britain lost in the entire war. The Winter War Finland, 1939 to 1940. The Soviet Union looked at Finland in 1939 and made some calculations. Finland had a population of about 3.5 million. The Soviet Union had 170 million. The Red Army had more tanks than Finland had soldiers. This should take about 2 weeks. It took 3.5 months, cost the Soviets somewhere between 125,000 and 170,000 dead, and ended with Finland still existing, which was not the original plan. The problem was the forest. Finnish soldiers grew up in those forests. They moved through them in white camouflage on skis, in temperatures of -40. Attacking Soviet columns on roads and then disappearing again before anyone could respond. Soviet soldiers were told to follow roads because the forest was impassable. Finnish soldiers disagreed. In one battle, Suomussalmi, approximately 11,000 Finnish soldiers destroyed 2 Soviet divisions totaling over 45,000 men. For the Soviet soldiers, the experience was something like marching in a long column, very cold, unable to see the trees. And then suddenly things start happening and nobody knows where from. The forest was the enemy. The cold was the enemy. The silence was the enemy. The Finns were just there to confirm Napoleon's retreat from Russia, 1812. Napoleon entered Russia with around 600,000 soldiers, the largest army ever assembled in Europe at that point. He left with somewhere between 60,000 and 100,000. And here is the remarkable part. Russia barely had to fight him. The Russian strategy was to retreat. Burn everything behind them and wait. No food for the French, no shelter, no supplies. Just empty burned villages and the growing realization that winter was arriving faster than the army was moving. The retreat became a race against the cold. Horses died first, exhaustion and no food. Then soldiers started falling behind. Stopping to rest in the snow was usually permanent. Crossing rivers became a crisis because the water was freezing and there were 100,000 people trying to cross at the same time. Of the 600,000 who entered, fewer than 100,000 returned. The battle casualties were a fraction of the total. Most were killed by cold, disease, and the road home. Napoleon made it back fine, by the way. He took a private carriage ahead of the army. So here is the pattern across all of these. The battle was sometimes the least dangerous part. Cold, disease, hunger, and the simple problem of being somewhere your body was not designed to function. Those killed more soldiers than the fighting did in almost every war on this list. History tends to remember the generals and the strategies and the turning points. The soldiers mostly just remember being cold and tired and waiting for something to happen. And the worst wars were not always the ones with the most dramatic battles. Sometimes they were just the ones where surviving meant something you would spend the rest of your life trying to forget. So, which of these would you least want to be part of? And which war should be on this list that we missed? Leave it below.